for tonight. Hashtag F2BQ. You can also email throughout the show, jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. All right, kids, you ready? Tonight, Professor Avi Loeb. And before we get to all of that, he'll be joining us at the bottom of the hour. Let's get to the breaking news. Now, I know a lot of you are tired of this, but things are getting heated over in the UK. Piers Morgan. Now, the news is this. Yesterday, he stormed off the set of the show that he hosts in the morning. It's called Good Morning Britain. And pouting, crying, wanted to take his toys and go home like a child. Comes back, chats a bit more, splits, and then he quits. Kind of did it on Twitter, by the way. So that's it. And all of this over Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Unbelievable. His final line in his final tweet, quote, "Thanks for all the love and hate. I'm off to spend more time with my opinions." End quote. There you go. I don't know what to make. The monarchy, the Queen of England, and a very established culture. It's what the UK is about, and I understand that. Very important geopolitically around the world. I understand that too. And most of the British respect and how do I say this? It's the monarchy is part of their culture, right? And what is going on right now with Meghan and things in the interview with Oprah? Well, this is world news, and I get that. It's not really news for me. It's a soap opera and things, but it's important to a lot of people. And I don't understand why Piers decided to just make this strong stand. I just don't get it. I don't get it. And to quit your job over something like this is because it was personal. Yeah. So that's it. I don't want to give my opinion. That's what went down, and I'm just shocked and surprised about it. It's like me, quitting Fade to Black because I've got a spat with somebody that has nothing to do with the show. It's unbelievable to me. All right. Yesterday, Tuesday, Elon Musk made $25 billion. Yesterday. That's right. 25 billion ducks just quacked in his pond. All of it from a 20% rally in Tesla's stock. Absolutely incredible. Well, China and Russia want to build a shared moon base. That's right. This was just announced. The two countries agreed to the plans yesterday, saying the International Lunar Research Station, the ILRS, should be open, quote, open to all interested countries and international partners, end quote. The memorandum of understanding between the two countries, announced by the China National Space Administration, the CNSA, described the ILRS as a comprehensive scientific experiment base with the capability of long-term autonomous operation, end quote. Neither country has ever landed a human crew on the moon. Now, that's of note, right? And they did not set a target date to begin construction of the ILRS. However, Russia remains a leading spacefaring country, and China has built impressive space stations in recent years. But no word if the U.S. is invited for any sleepovers. There you go. Announced today, American Airlines will no longer have to lay off an estimated 13,000 employees following the passing of the latest stimulus package by Congress. The airline industry will receive $15 billion out of the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill, as well as an extension on the payroll support program. The provision was expected to expire on April 1st as part of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. That's great news. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Olivia Wilde is 37. Starred in Tron and starred in House MD. Chuck Norris today, 81 years old. Let's never forget that Chuck fought Bruce Lee in Way of the Dragon. That's right, 72. Sharon Stone today is 63. John Hamm, I think he's funny, and I think he's a great actor. John Hamm today is 50. Of course, starred in Mad Men, starring in the new upcoming Top Gun Maverick. And he was also really good in the TV series Good Omens. Boston's genius guitar player, Tom Scholz, today is 74. Pearl Jam bassist Jeff Ament today is 58. Edie Brickell and the New Bohemians. Yeah, you like that band. Yeah, I know you did. Today she's 55. Def Jam's American Recording and so forth. Def Jam's Rick Rubin today is 58. Some say he is the greatest producer of all time. Of course, the Beastie Boys, Johnny Cash, did really well with the Red Hot Chili Peppers too as well. And probably 100 other bands. Rick Rubin today is 58. Our dead guy's birthday today is Ted McKenna. Ted McKenna, 1950 to 2019, died at the age of 68. Ted was an amazing drummer. He played with the sensational Alex Harvey Band, played with Rory Gallagher, the Greg Lake Band, and the Michael Schenker Group. He also toured with Ian Gillan for a short period back in 1990. Ted lectured in applied arts at North Glasgow College from 1996 to 2011. In 2016, he reunited with Michael Schenker for the Michael Schenker Fest, an anniversary lineup of all three original MSG vocalists, Gary Barden, one of my favorite singers of all time, Graham Bonnet, one of the best of all time, and of course, Robin McCauley. Ted died on January 19th, 2019, at the age of 68 of a hemorrhage during a routine operation. Happy birthday, Ted McKenna. On this day in history, OTD, 1876. First speech is transmitted by telephone when Alexander Graham Bell summons his assistant in another room by saying, quote, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want you." Yeah. Bell got his telephone patent just 3 days before. Fader fact. It's a good one. Fader fact. After being told a jet-powered car can run on anything that burns, the president of Mexico, Adolfo Mateos, rode in the turbine Chrysler running on tequila in 1963. And that is your Fader fact. Tonight, very special guest, Professor Avi Loeb joins us. We're going to be talking about his new book, Extraterrestrial. We've got a lot of things that are about to happen at the bottom of the hour. So get ready for all of that. And tomorrow night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Now, it's time for me to hit this River Moon coffee. rivermooncoffee.com. Yeah. No, it's rivermoonwellness.com. I keep, after so many years, rivermooncoffee.com. rivermoonwellness.com. I wonder what happens if you do rivermooncoffee.com. Is it a reroute? Is it a reroute to River Moon Wellness? Well, you can just go click on the links at jimmychurchradio.com. All right. And also visit their Amazon store. Get that Game Changer blend. It's really good. Promo code F2B blend. All right. Let me hit this. That's funny. Gilligan's Island coconuts. That's funny. That's funny. Well, tonight's a very special night. But before I get to that, all right. I'm going to get to the end, and then I'm going to repeat the end. I'm going to do the end at the beginning. I'm going to reverse things because you need to know where my mind is right now. So, Professor Avi Loeb and I recorded the interview today. We did it 2 hours before showtime. It was just recorded. We did it as live as we could leading up to the show. But Professor Loeb gets up at 4 a.m. to teach school. And I just couldn't keep him up late. He's on the East Coast. And that's just the way that it is. So he agreed to push it up at maximum so he can get a little bit of sleep tonight and still do the interview fresh like it was live. And so we recorded it about 2 hours ago, 2.5 hours ago. And coming off of the interview, I got to think. I was thinking. What have I learned after doing nearly 13 years of radio? And, well, the first thing, and it may be the most important, there may be only one thing, and that is speak with conviction. That's right. Speak with conviction and believe in yourself. Don't use words or ideas that you think people want to hear. No. Not live in front of a live audience, not on the radio, not in an interview. Don't do it. Speak with conviction and believe in yourself. Never use words or ideas that you think people just want to hear to prop yourself up and make you feel important because you are saying the wrong thing. Only say the stuff that you truly believe. Truly believe. Stuff that you have learned. And this comes from so many before me. And it's a lesson that only comes with time. That's it. It only comes with time. It can't be force-fed. It's not instant. Doesn't work that way. You've got to stumble. You've got to figure it out. It's got to be part of you. Ideas that are not your own or not from your true belief system are wasted. Wasted. And think about this when you have a conversation with somebody. Before you just repeat or you just want to say something in a conversation with somebody where you're just going to say something to make yourself seem and feel important, those are the wrong words. Stop yourself right there. Pump the brakes. Stop the truck. Stop it. Those words are not remembered by anyone. And you think it's so important. You think you're sounding so good. No, it's wasted. The person listening to you, whoever it is, their brain picks up on this. They know the ideas are not yours. They know you don't believe this with conviction. They know the brain picks up on this. It knows when the words are just filler, stolen, repeated, meaningless. The brain, when it hears it, knows true original thought, true original ideas and theories. Brain gets it. And they know when it's coming from somebody that believes in themselves. Now, I know what you're saying. Jimmy, give me an example. What are you talking about, man? This is getting way out there, man. It's too philosophical. It's not. John Anthony West. God rest his soul. John Anthony West spoke with conviction, believed in himself. You hung on his every word. You remembered every word. Your brain understood. That's right. Jim Mars was magical with this. He spoke, you listened, you remembered. It wasn't blah, blah, blah. And it never was. That's what you do. You learn from those that come before. It's really that simple. It's that simple. Stanton Friedman. Right, it's like the big three right there. John Anthony West, Jim Mars. Stanton Friedman speaks with conviction every time. Every time. He believed in himself. And that's what you have to do. And that is what I have learned. You want a real recent example? Last night's show. Chris Bledsoe speaks with conviction, believes in himself, original thought, original ideas from source. That is what I have learned. Tonight, Avi Loeb brings all of this in full force. He's an original. Remember everything that I just laid out for you right now. Listen to Avi Loeb. Avi Loeb is singular. Original thought, original ideas, original theories, and he believes in them, and he believes in himself. He doesn't care what others think. And it's an incredible conversation. And I wrapped the conversation right before showtime tonight. And I sat back and I thought to myself, not only was that a great conversation and fun, I learned something, but you just feel, your brain knows it is coming as original thought. It's coming from somebody with conviction that believes in themselves. Now, this interview coming up was recorded live, straight through. No edits. Did it with the commercials in play. Boom, done, in, out, done, hit, bum, save file, on computer, ready to play. That's it. One whack. 2 straight hours. So this is what I'm going to be doing tonight. I'm going to stay with you. I'm going to be hanging out in the YouTube chat. I'm going to keep the video going. I'm going to bounce around between Twitter and Spreaker, and I'll try to jump over to Facebook too if I have the time. But it's an opportunity for me to hang out with all of you as we listen to this interview again. And I cannot wait to hear it. Right? I cannot wait. And another thing that I need to remind everybody of, out of the 1,400 shows that we have done, I think we recorded 2. That's it. The last recorded show, and I could be wrong, it's so rare. The last show that we recorded was Eric Von Daniken 5 years ago. That's how important this show was tonight. We had to do it. Everything was in place. It had to happen, and it's the only way that it could. That's how unique tonight is. So I am able to go back, something I never do, which is go back and listen to this very important conversation one more time and then hang out with all of you. I want your thoughts. I want to know what you guys think. You're about to learn. It's an absolutely incredible night. And so with that, I am going to just say, let's roll it and let's get this started. I am very honored that Professor Loeb not only came in here, but very candid, very honest, very open. It's an incredible, incredible conversation. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. We'll be right back after this short break with Professor Avi Loeb. Literally recorded 2.5 hours ago. It's a two-hour conversation. Here we go.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from Rivermoon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all Rivermoon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRARadio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. GetTheTea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Matthew. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Professor Avi Loeb joins us. We're going to be talking about his new book, Extraterrestrial. Tomorrow night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Tonight, Harvard's Professor Avi Loeb joins us. We're going to discuss his new book, Extraterrestrial, and our visitor from the stars, Oumuamua, the first known interstellar object detected passing through our solar system. Avi Loeb is a theoretical physicist who works on astrophysics and cosmology. He is the Frank B. Baird Jr. Professor of Science at Harvard University and was the longest-serving chair of Harvard's Department of Astronomy from 2011 to 2020. Founding director of Harvard's Black Hole Initiative since 2016, and director of the Institute for Theory and Computation since 2007 within the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. Tonight, we are going to discuss his new book, Extraterrestrial, and the links for the book are over at jimmychurchradio.com. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Professor Avi Loeb. Avi, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Now, what you get tonight, Avi, you get the first-time guest disclaimer. So let's get starts. It starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go. You ready?
I'm ready. Totally.
Now, I actually want to do this. I want to start here because you've been out doing a lot of interviews, and the same questions come at you time and time again. This is going to be a little bit different in that I know my guest, I know the subject, and I've been lurking in the background with you for a number of years. I pretty much know what's going on. The book is amazing. I've now read it 3 times, but I want to actually back up and start here. You write a chapter in the book about you growing up on your family's farm in Israel, and I found that part of the book very compelling. And what we know now about you is one thing, but back then in Israel, were you looking to the stars? Were you thinking about life in the universe growing up?
Not at all. I was pretty much connected to nature because, in the farm we had the chicken. I used to collect eggs every afternoon, and on weekends I would go to the hills of the village and mainly read philosophy books. And I enjoyed the relaxing environment, and I enjoyed it much more than the company of people. And I was not a social animal, and that pretty much shaped me as a scientist as well. I pay special respect to nature when it gives us evidence. And I really don't care about how many likes I have on Twitter. But I also care about the big picture that philosophy taught me about. And, that most scientists are drilling in a very narrow niche and becoming experts. But then they face the risk of reaching the bedrock of that niche, and where you cannot drill anymore and you cannot find anything new. And the broader view allows you to look sideways and perhaps identify opportunities when others do not. And I take advantage of that. I think outside the box very often.
The other part about this is when somebody has an interest expressed in life in the universe or the possibility of extraterrestrials visiting us, there always seems to be a personal connection that has driven them here. Did you ever see something strange in the sky that you couldn't explain?
Not at all. One way to interpret the reason why I'm looking for intelligence in the sky is because I don't often find it here on Earth.
Do you? That's a very interesting point, because in the world of hard sciences, there are 2 things that are going on. One, the search for extraterrestrial life and the origins of the universe and what is going on out there amongst the stars, and even more fantastical things like the multiverse and parallel worlds and what quantum physics and theoretical things are driving that part of science. And then there's the other part where physicists and the hard sciences don't want to go to the other side and talk about these things. There's like a line in the sand. They want us to believe in the fantastical of the multiverse, but yet they don't want to cross the line. You've chosen to cross that line, haven't you?
Well, I wouldn't call it crossing the line. In fact, I would argue that the approach I'm advocating is more conservative, more evidence-based, and more loyal to the tradition of physics, rather than speculating about ideas that can never be tested, like the multiverse. There is no experimental test that would show us that we live in the multiverse as of now. Also, there is no direct test of the idea of extra dimensions or of string theory that a lot of people in the mainstream are working on. On the other hand, in the case of the object that we are discussing, if another one comes along and it looks as weird as Oumuamua, this object, we could in principle send a spacecraft that will take a photograph. And, a picture is worth 1,000 words. It can tell us the difference between an artificial object produced by another civilization and a natural object like a rock. In my case, a picture is worth 66,000 words, the number of words in my book.
Now, have you, we're going to move on in just a second, but personally, have you gotten any pressure from your physicist friends and partners out there about this book and expressing these types of views?
Yeah, I mean, the pressure is psychological. People on social media write negative things and attack me personally, but I would much rather have them discuss the anomalies of this object. The reason that I advocate for a possible, technological origin for this object was the fact that it didn't look like an asteroid or a comet, the way we found rocks, in the solar system before. And if they want to, keep their eyes on the ball and just address these issues, I would be very happy to engage in a conversation. But instead, they're attacking me. They're attacking the actual idea of considering this as a possibility, which I find a little bit strange, given that I'm just practicing the way science is often done. You have something that doesn't quite line up with what you expected, and therefore you put possibilities on the table. And there is nothing wrong with that, as long as it motivates you to get more evidence. Now, if they say it's always rocks, it's never aliens, that's a prejudice. And obviously, we'll never discover wonderful things if you're not ready to search for them. And that's exactly where we stand right now.
Now, there is a bunch of, for me, and following you over the years, a lot of strange coincidences happened along the way for you, in my opinion. And one of them, I want to talk about Yuri Milner, of course, and Stephen Hawking and Breakthrough Starshot. If that hadn't had happened, Milner and Hawking, would you have taken notice of Oumuamua?
I would have taken notice. Perhaps I would not have imagined the kind of technology that could explain it. So I confess that my imagination is limited to what I know and what I've experienced. And that was always true. We started searching for radio signals from space once we developed the radio technology for communication on Earth. And obviously, we can only imagine things we experienced. So it's true for me, but that doesn't mean that it's not that, that Oumuamua is not a light sail just because I was able to imagine it. So the point of the matter is, reality really doesn't care if we ignore it, if we recognize it. It's whatever it is. And we are trying to figure it out. And when we have possibilities on the table, the best way to proceed is get more evidence that will allow us to decide if the interpretation is correct. And that's all I'm advocating. The only reason we might not get that evidence is if my colleagues continue to argue we know the answer without even checking. And, that's what the philosophers during the days of Galileo did. They said, we know that the sun moves around the earth, and we don't want to look through a telescope.
Now, and the other strange coincidence, and you write about this in the book, and I found it just amazing. you go to Hawaii with your family, little vacation, little tour, the observatories, and you give a presentation about extraterrestrials. You do that, and then 3 months later, Oumuamua happens. And I don't think that's a coincidence.
Well,
when you look back at that, was that the universe reaching out to you in a strange way?
Yeah, well, I find it just, maybe a coincidence. I'm not sure. I mean, things in life happen, and I don't give it a special significance. And obviously, it allowed me to know firsthand what the observatory looks like, and then attracted my attention when the report came out about Oumuamua. But yeah, maybe things happen in life sometimes for reasons we don't fully understand.
Now, when Oumuamua and the reports of it first came out, I reported on this not only here but over on Coast to Coast AM, and I'm reaching out to millions of people each night, right? And I thought something strange is going on here. There was for me, the one line in the report about, or actually two, that caught my attention, which was for me unexplainable, was it took a turn and then hit the gas. And I just thought to myself, something strange is going on here. When you read the same things and looked at that research and the data, what went through your head?
Well, so the data came in pieces. It didn't come all together. And every time an anomaly was reported, it looked as if, it's unusual. And at some point, there was this straw that broke the camel's back. And that's when there was this anomaly about it getting an extra push away from the sun that cannot be explained because there was no gas around it, so you couldn't explain it in terms of the rocket effect like you do in the case of comets. It certainly was not a comet. And so at that point, I started suspecting, okay, well, it's time to summarize all the weird properties, and there were 6 of them. That was in June 2018, about 8 months after the object was discovered. So at that point, I wrote an essay to Scientific American where I summarized all the weird properties, and I said, well, maybe it implies that it's of artificial origin. And then a few months later, I wrote a scientific paper, with equations and numbers that argued that indeed, it may be a light sail, some artificial object, and not necessarily a rock. And, the paper was accepted for publication within a few days, which is quite unusual. And then a couple of bloggers wrote about it, and it became viral in the media. And I didn't even have a press release about it. And also the same thing happened with my book. Once the New York Post put out a story on January 3rd, 2021, every day after that, I had the interviews from 8 a.m. till 7 p.m., about 350 of them over the past couple of months. And I viewed it as a platform, as an opportunity to convey my message about the current, first of all, that Oumuamua might be the first artifact, technological object that we have seen from another civilization, but also more importantly about how the current scientific culture doesn't have its heart in the right place, given the public's interest.
Now, one of the things about Oumuamua to me that I think was a letdown is we didn't know anything until it was past us. We didn't have the opportunity to photograph it, image it, and track it earlier. What information could we have gotten if we had jumped on this, 2 months earlier?
Yes, exactly. So, and that's a lesson for the future because, we found it after a few years of surveying the sky with the Pan-STARRS Observatory, and we're likely to find more after a similar amount of time. And In fact, there would be the Vera Rubin Observatory, much more sensitive than Pan-STARRS, starting operations in less than 3 years, and it could discover a new object like it, every month. And so the lesson for those future objects that would look as weird as Oumuamua was, is that we should, if we get an alert a year in advance, then we could send a spacecraft equipped with a camera that will pass close to them, will intercept their trajectory and take a photograph. And that would allow us to tell directly, and I don't think anyone would argue with a photograph, whether it's a natural object or an artificial object. And if it is one of them is artificial, it's just like looking for plastic bottles on the beach. Most of the time you find rocks, but every now and then you find a plastic bottle. So if we do find an artificial object, the next question is, can we put our hands on it? Can we land on it just the way we are we're landing on asteroids, then we may be able to read off the label that says made on planet X, or maybe we could try to import the technology that is on it. If that technology is far more advanced than what we have here on Earth, it's a learning experience. It would allow us to jumpstart our technological advance instead of waiting a million years to invent it ourselves.
Now, another thing so fascinating about Oumuamua is we know about Pioneer 10 and 11 and Voyager 1 and 2 and New Horizons, where years and years and years are spent with these craft to exit our solar system and head into interstellar space. Oumuamua came and went quickly. How fast? Can we talk about the speed of Oumuamua?
Yeah, so the speed reflected the motion of the solar system in its environment. There is this frame of reference, which is called the local standard of rest, which is the frame that you get to when you average over the random motions of all the stars in the vicinity of the sun. And each star is moving. You can think of this as the local parking lot of the Milky Way galaxy. And Oumuamua was at rest in the local standard of rest. It was sort of parked there, just like a buoy on the surface of the ocean. And then the solar system bumped into it, just like a giant ship, because of its motion relative to the local standard of rest. And only 1 in 500 stars is so much at rest as Oumuamua was in that frame. So it was very unusual. It wasn't really moving in the local standard of rest, and we bumped into it. And that raises the question of why, would we find the first object to be so unusual? It doesn't move like a typical star does relative to the local standard of rest. One possibility is that, it's a member of a population of objects that is set on a grid, and it's useful for navigation through interstellar space. If you want to know your coordinates, you do it relative to these objects that are placed at rest in the local standard of rest. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that it's a member of an array of objects used for communication as relay stations, But we don't really know at this point because we had only one encounter like that. We need to wait until we find more of objects of the same class. And it just raises questions and possibilities.
Now, and the speed that it traveled through our solar system and to leave us so quickly, what does that say to you about the sheer quickness of it all?
It's just the speed that the sun moves relative to the local standard of rest, because this object was at rest, just like a buoy on the surface of the ocean, and we bumped into it simply because we were moving. So it itself was not moving relative to the local standard of rest. And that's the reason that it was moving fast relative to us, because the sun is moving very fast relative to the local standard of rest. And, we just bumped into it and we gave it a kick through our motion.
Now, what about the increase in speed? That was something that you addressed pretty quickly, where other astronomers were trying to label it as a comet, that there was something else that was pushing it. And that didn't seem to be the case. Of course, it was identified originally as an A, I believe, right? And then it got the C classification. And then finally the 1I, interstellar classification in the end.
Yeah, initially people thought it's a comet, but there was no cometary tail around it visually. And then the Spitzer Space Telescope searched for any traces of carbon-based molecules or dust around it. Didn't find anything to very deep limits, So in order for the push of this object to be generated by the rocket effect, by evaporating gases, you needed about a 10% of the mass of this object to evaporate, and we would have seen it easily, given what we know about comets. And we haven't seen anything. So clearly, it was not a comet of the type that we are used to. You can always imagine something that we have never seen before, like a comet made of pure hydrogen. Someone suggested that. And the problem with that is, obviously, hydrogen is transparent, so you might miss the cometary tail, but such a hydrogen iceberg the size of a football field would get evaporated very quickly by absorbing starlight and wouldn't survive the journey. So we showed that in a paper that we wrote afterwards. And so, people suggested things that we have never seen before, but each and every one of them had problems. Another one was maybe it's a dust bunny, a collection of dust particles that are loosely bound, just like the dust bunnies you find at home. And the idea was maybe it's 100 times less dense than air. So it's very lightweight, sort of like a fluffy cloud of dust that can be easily pushed by reflecting sunlight. But it needs to be 100 times less dense than air. And then when it gets close to the sun, it would get heated by hundreds of degrees. And it's just hard for me to see how it would maintain its integrity, given that it's heated by hundreds of degrees and the fact that it has very low material strength. So, all these proposals had significant flaws. The other thing is this object was most likely pancake-shaped based on the reflection of sunlight as it was tumbling. So there was another suggestion. Maybe it's just a shrapnel, a shred of a bigger object that was disrupted by the tidal force as it passed close to a star. And the problem with that is usually you get this shrapnel to be elongated, cigar-shaped and not pancake-shaped. So all of the possibilities that were put on the table as an alternative to a light sail or an artificial origin, they all had the major flaws. And, that's why I wrote my book, and I suggest that we consider the artificial origin as a viable possibility.
Our guest tonight, Professor Avi Loeb. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. More with Avi after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, my name is Billy Carson, and I am a best-selling author and the founder of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Together with my team, we have built an all-new conscious streaming TV platform designed with every family member in mind. If you have ever wanted to travel the world and attend lectures and workshops from your favorite speakers but weren't able to, look no further. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. There are dozens of workshops and lectures from speakers you know and love. We have also included amazing categories to assure that your consciousness is entertained and elevating on a daily basis. Amazing interviews, ancient history, ascension knowledge, wisdom teachings, documentaries, conspiracies, mysteries, health and fitness, conscious cooking, meditations, finance, yoga, and so much more. To start your free trial on any mobile device or computer, surf to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Again, visit ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer, Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're also Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Professor Avi Loeb, and we are discussing his new book, Extraterrestrial, the first sign of intelligent life beyond Earth. The links for the book are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Check it out. I have now read it 3 times. I'm headed to my 4th. Now, Professor Loeb, before the break, as we're discussing the object itself, Oumuamua, you brought up in your papers the possibility of this having a light sail construct to it. I mentioned Yuri Milner and Stephen Hawking earlier, and their project, of course. Is that what made you think light sail? You know, because of the other research that you're working on?
Well, no. First of all, I wanted to explain the push that was exhibited by this object. The force that was pushing it declined inversely with distance squared, and it couldn't be due to the rocket effect from evaporating gases. So the question is, what is doing what is doing this effect. And the only thing that came to mind is reflection of sunlight. And in fact, as it turns out in retrospect, in September 2020, there was another object that exhibited an excess push away from the sun by reflecting sunlight, and there was no cometary tail. And this object was also discovered by Pan-STARRS. It was given the astronomical name 2020 SO. And then the astronomers realized that, it's actually a rocket booster from a 1966 launch, a mission called Lunar Lander Surveyor 2. And this rocket booster was produced by us, and it had very thin walls. And that's why it exhibited the excess push away from the sun. So we know that we produced this artificially, and that lends credibility to the possibility that Oumuamua was also a thin object with a large area for its weight. And that was, I checked the numbers, it turns out that the object had to be very thin in order for the reflection of sunlight to act on it, to be effective. Sort of like a sail. And that's what led me to suggest that it may be a sail. And we are currently, as you said, developing this technology of light sails, where you push a spacecraft by reflecting light off its sail, just like the sail on a boat is pushed forward by reflecting the wind. And so that was the origin of my suggestion. And it was based on the fact that there is this push on Oumuamua. But then, of course, as you say, my imagination is obviously limited to things that I've experienced. And the involvement in the Starshot project allowed me to imagine this possibility as a viable one.
Now, and I want to speak very directly to this. When you start going into these areas, you're going to have skeptics. You're going to have the blowback, and you're going to have the counter arguments. Did you decide to challenge the counter offers, right, that were coming in out there, or do you just let it lay?
Well, I keep my eyes on the ball and less so on the audience. I don't care what's happening on social media and how many likes I have on Twitter, but I really care about how people explain the anomalies that we observe, because that's the name of the game. That's the ball. The ball is the anomalies, and we need to explain them. We cannot just ignore them and make based on our prejudice, make the argument that it must be rocks until there is extraordinary evidence for anything else. We need to find what this object is, and even if you argue that it's natural, you have to explain the properties that it exhibited. And the scientists that attempted to do that came up with something that we have never seen before. So I say, if we are discussing something that we have never seen before, why not an artificial origin? And to me, it sounds like a very plausible hypothesis to consider, given that this object doesn't look like anything we have seen. I was a bit naive in doing that. And, I follow my childhood curiosity in the way I do science. I don't make any political calculations. I'm not trying to impress or to be liked by people. I just follow the evidence and put on the table what seems to be a possibility. And let's, if it encourages us to get more evidence, all for the better. That's part of the scientific process. But in this case, in difference from other cases where I suggested, new physics or something to do with, let's say, the nature of dark matter, which we don't know what it is, and nobody complained when I suggested that maybe the dark matter has some properties that would explain this and that anomaly. That was fine because it's part of the scientific process. Here, when I suggested this explanation, people were very polarized. They attacked me personally on occasion, but that's really not the game I'm playing. I'm not playing a game of mud wrestling here. I'm just talking about the anomalies of Oumuamua. I don't want to reply to personal attacks because if you get into the mud, you get dirty. And we should just address it as a scientific question and collect more evidence. And the only way we won't learn something new is if we refuse to consider some possibilities. As we know from the history of science, the progress was blocked when people had prejudice and had strong convictions. And what I find really unfortunate is that the public is very excited about this possibility, and my book is doing extremely well because of that. Whereas, and I think the reason is that the public is being starved on, the discussion on other civilizations out there and looking for them. And I find it inappropriate on behalf of the science community not to make it part of the mainstream, because we are investing more than $1 billion in the search for gravitational waves, for example, and that won the Nobel Prize in physics a few years ago. Without the investment of $1.1 billion by the National Science Foundation, we would never find this evidence. And, just claiming that we need extraordinary evidence without providing the funds, right now the search for technological signatures has 1,000 times less funding, or even more, than the search for gravitational waves. Without funding it, obviously we won't find the evidence. And with ridiculing anytime someone mentions the possibility of a technological signature, obviously we'll not get young talent to work on this subject. So it's sort of like stepping on the grass and then saying, look, the grass doesn't grow. So saying it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, saying we need extraordinary evidence, but at the same time not allowing this evidence to be gathered. That's really unfortunate and inappropriate for the scientific community to do. The scientific community should recognize that this is a question the public cares dearly about, and the public funds science, and we have the ability to address this question right now. We have the instruments, the telescopes. We just need to allow ourselves to explore it. And why would it be more speculative than the search for specific types of dark matter, for example? We don't know what the dark matter is, and we are searching in the dark. And we spent hundreds of millions of dollars searching for particular types of dark matter. We haven't found anything. Nobody complains. That's part of the scientific endeavor. Sometimes you go in directions that do not prove you fruitful. But the dark matter, frankly, the nature of the dark matter will have zero impact on our lives. And if we find that Oumuamua was a technological relic, that would have a huge impact on society. So we should fund the search for relics in space, which I call space archaeology. We should fund it at least at the level that we're funding the search for dark matter or the search for gravitational waves. In my opinion, it should be funded even more given the public's interest. And by the way, it would make science exciting. Why should science be boring? Why should we always talk about concepts the public doesn't really care about?
You bring up one of the best points ever. Science is nothing but a series of corrections. That's what it is, right? We move forward. Right. We're constantly correcting. And
it's a learning experience. That's the way kids learn, by the way. They put some skin in the game, and that's what, literally speaking, that's why they get bruised. They try things that do not work out, and that's the way science should be done. It's a learning experience. We learn about the world. We don't know in advance everything, and we make mistakes along the way. What's the problem? It's not about us. It's about nature. We are trying to figure out nature. So let's collect as much evidence as possible about whether we have neighbors in our cosmic street. It's a fundamental question. And why would we assume that there are no neighbors?
Now, speaking of funding, and another strange coincidence, and you can giggle if you want, but I noticed this. In the movie Contact, which is fundamentally, it's Carl Sagan, of course, but it's a movie about funding and funding getting cut back and how to make contact and get the funding done again. But it was also about the signals coming from Vega. And Oumuamua, as I'm looking at the data, it apparently came from the direction of Vega. And I had to stop and think about that for a second. Have you thought about where the origins of Oumuamua may have been?
But the fact that it was at rest in the local standard of rest means that we cannot really associate it with any star, because stars are moving relative to that frame, and you would expect an object that comes from one of the nearby stars to inherit its speed. And I think there is, we simply cannot associate this object with any particular star. And the direction of Vega is simply the direction that the sun is moving towards in the local standard of rest. And as I mentioned, this object was at rest and we just bumped into it. So we are moving in that direction. That's why we saw this object coming towards us from that direction.
So it didn't originate from Vega, which is the press release on this would have implied that.
No, it didn't. And the other point to keep in mind is, the outskirts of the solar system are defined by the so-called Oort cloud. That's roughly a spherical region around the sun that is 100,000 times bigger than the Earth-Sun separation, where you have rocks left over from the formation process of the solar system being scattered, and sort of like the building blocks, the Lego pieces of the planets that were scattered out to that distance, 100,000 times the Earth-Sun separation. And it's roughly halfway to the nearest star system. So if every star has an Oort cloud like that, these Oort clouds are touching each other. They're sort of like densely packed billiard balls. So just imagine going in some direction in the sky, you will pierce through, in any direction, you will pierce through lots of these Oort clouds, a large number of them, and you would never be able to figure out which Oort cloud the object you're looking at came from, because it could have come from any of those. And therefore, I think it's completely hopeless to try and associate an interstellar object with a particular star as the origin.
In another aspect of this, when something is approaching, well, this is the first time, from interstellar space, how easy is it to detect? Because it would need to reflect light from the sun for us to see it optically, and that would be very difficult, going out into the Kuiper Belt and beyond. Nothing would reflect. How do we detect something else that would approach us from interstellar space?
Right. So it all depends on the size of the telescope you're using as to, it's like a light bucket. It collects light. And the Pan-STARRS telescope was able to detect an object roughly the size of a football field, which was the size of Oumuamua, a few hundred feet, within the orbit of the Earth around the sun. Okay, so that, just to give you a ballpark number. So the reflection of sunlight from an object of a few hundred feet is detectable by a telescope like Pan-STARRS. And the Vera Rubin Observatory, the next telescope that will come online and survey the sky that is much more sensitive, will be bigger and could detect things farther away of this size. Now, there may be many more objects that are smaller passing through and fewer objects that are bigger. But they get dimmer inversely with distance to the fourth power very quickly.
Right.
So, for example, Oumuamua now is 1 million times fainter than when it was close to Earth. We can't really see it with any telescope right now. And there is no point in chasing it because, as I said before, there would be more coming our way, and we just need to wait for them. So, when I go to the kitchen, when I see an ant, I get alarmed because there must be many more ants out there. And the same is true about objects of the type of Oumuamua. There must be many more passing through. And instead of obsessing on any particular one of them, we should search for more and find them and then send a camera that will give us photographs.
Now, you had indicated earlier Oumuamua being sort of static and like a buoy in the ocean. Right now, you just stated chasing it. Is it still static? Is it the speed of our solar system and it is traveling that causes the motion of Oumuamua?
Well, we actually gave it a kick, right, when it came close to the sun, sort of like giving a kick to a buoy when a ship runs into it.
Sure.
We didn't really collide with it, but the gravitational force of the sun deflected it, gave it a kick. And right now it's not in the local standard of rest anymore because we kicked it. So it's moving away. So, this object is running out of the solar system at an enhanced speed. And again, it doesn't have a special significance, but there are many more objects that should come our way in the future.
Now, how many are undetected? I know that's a hypothetical, but
it depends again on the telescope. With pan-stars, anything much smaller than Oumuamua would not be detectable, roughly at a fraction of the Earth-Sun separation. It wouldn't be detectable. There might be a lot of those that are smaller. Something like the size of a person would not be detectable, and maybe there are lots of things like it passing through, a spacecraft as small as that, or something that is moving very fast, at a fraction of the speed of light, like the light sails we are planning to launch with the Starshot initiative. That will not be detectable because it would move too fast, and currently astronomers would simply ignore it. So, there might be a lot of stuff flying through the solar system that we haven't yet detected, and that's why it's good to deploy a lot of cameras within the orbit of the Earth around the sun, because maybe we will see things we haven't seen before.
Now, the universe is a big place, right? We understand this, but the Milky Way is also very big. It is huge. It's 150,000 light years across. It's not a small environment. But the odds of something finding our solar system and cruising by our planet, I think, is a huge number. I don't know how big that number is, but was it finding us? Do you think it was actually sent here?
So if it's just space trash, most of the stars in the Milky Way galaxy formed billions of years before the sun. So if they had a technological civilization similar to ours, it may be dead by now, and it produced probes like Voyager 1, Voyager 2, and others that were sent into space and are not operational anymore. Imagine Voyager a billion years from now, it will not really work. So most of it would be just space trash, most of the equipment we find, and that would be my natural expectation. So in that case, it would still indicate that there was a civilization that sent it, but it wouldn't necessarily spy on us or try to gather information. But who knows? We need to have an open mind and just try to get more evidence. But if it's a random a population of objects on random trajectories, then there should be a lot of them right now within the solar system, because we detected one after a few years passing within the Earth-Sun separation. There should be of order a quadrillion of them inside the Oort cloud. That's 10 to the power 15, a lot. And just like ants in a kitchen, so we will find another one in a few years. And that's why I'm saying, we should continue to search and find more of the same. And once we do identify objects that look as weird as Oumuamua was, then we can examine, them more carefully. Unless, of course, the scientific community continues to argue that it's always rocks and therefore we shouldn't even check.
Now, how many trips through the solar system, interstellar-wise, is it going to take for science to wake up? Right? Once, okay. Twice, is it 3, 4, 5, 6?
I hope it's only once, because that would be the intelligent thing to do. That it's a wake-up call for us to start doing space archaeology. In the past, for 70 years, we've been searching for radio signals. And that's just like trying to have a phone conversation with another civilization. And it requires that the counterpart would be alive. We cannot have a phone conversation with the Mayans. The Mayan culture is dead and not around anymore. But we can learn about them from archaeological digs. We can find the relics they left behind. And in much the same way, we can look for relics in space. I call that space archaeology. And I do think that just like archaeology on Earth is a mainstream activity, every campus, university campus has some archaeologists, the same should be true for space archaeology in the future. There should be experts in looking for debris or relics of other civilizations in space in every university in the future.
Now, let's examine something for a second. In 1995, talking about the way all of this is starting to come to the surface when it comes to science and astronomy. 1995, one exoplanet, right? A few years later, we had 5. Today in 2021, we've got, 5,000 waiting to be cataloged, right? That's where we are today. And the general conversation is every star you see in the sky has got a planet. And now these numbers are getting into the tens of billions just in our Milky Way. What does this do for science and funding and looking to the future? I think it's the best day to be an astronomer. Just go to work tonight, you're going to discover a planet, right?
Well, there are 2 important lessons from what happened in the field of exoplanets. The first lesson is, in 1952, there was an astronomer named Otto Struve who said, imagine a planet like Jupiter being very close to a star like the Sun. In that case, it will tag the star back and forth in a way that we can measure because it's so close to the star. And also, it will have a higher chance of coming in front of the star and blocking a little bit of the starlight, so we can detect that as well. And for 4 decades, astronomers on time allocation committees on major telescopes refused to allow time on telescopes to search for such systems, because they argued, we know why Jupiter is so far from the Sun. You wouldn't expect any other star to have a Jupiter-like planet so close to it. And only in 1995, the first such system was discovered. So you might say, and then, of course, the Nobel Prize was awarded for it a few years ago in physics. And that opened up a whole new field of exoplanet searches. You might say, okay, well, eventually scientists arrived at this discovery. It took 4 decades, but eventually it happened. Well, first of all, what about the wasted time? In those 4 decades, we could have made a lot of progress. And second, this is a baby that was barely born. What about all these babies that were never born? The unborn babies. So that's lesson number 1, that it's really, science is not efficient the way that the mainstream, approach to innovative ideas is handled right now. And then the second point is that, the one thing we learned from the Kepler satellite data is that not only that there are so many planets out there, but the chance of having an Earth-sized planet at the separation the Earth is from the Sun around a Sun-like star is quite substantial. It's about 50% plus or minus 20%. And, like half of the Sun-like stars have a planet like the Earth. And that means that not only we are not at the center of the universe, but what we find in our backyard, an Earth-Sun system, that is very common. There are billions of those systems in the Milky Way galaxy alone. And that, to me, again, reiterates the point of modesty. We should be modest because we are not privileged. What we find in our backyard is common, is typical. So why would we assume that we are special and unique? Why would we say that finding evidence for others is an extraordinary claim? It's not an extraordinary claim. We might be as common as ants are on a sidewalk. There were many like us before, and we should just search for them.
Now, how amazing is it for you as an astronomer and doing what you do to see the numbers multiply like they are? It seems like now it's daily.
Right.
It's not if there are other planets out there. Right now we are talking in the billions, rocky Earth-like planets. Right. The amount of galaxies in the universe. 5 years ago, that conversation was 250 billion. Now the conversation is 1 trillion, right? It is constantly increasing every day.
Yeah, well, it comes back to the point that we are not privileged, we are not special. There are many copies of systems that we see around us. And, that comes back to the Copernican principle that we should never assume that we are at the center of things, that we are unique and special, that we are privileged in any way. And it comes back to me as a message saying, let's search for things like us because we are not special. You know, it's just like the Roman Caesars used to have a person next to them, telling them, don't forget that you are mortal. Don't be arrogant. Because those emperors used to, be very arrogant after winning a war. And they needed someone next to them to tell them, stay modest, you are mortal. And to me, what the message we get from the sky is very similar. It says, don't feel privileged. You are not unusual. You are common. And we keep getting that message again and again. It started with the message that Galileo got through his telescopes. The Earth is not at the center of the universe. The Earth moves around the sun. Okay, it took a while. We accepted that. But still, the mainstream of the astronomy community is willing maybe to entertain the possibility of microbes and searching for microbes. But why not search for things like us, technological signatures in space? And by the way, it's really difficult to find subtle effects of microbes on the atmospheres of other planets. It's easier to find, for example, industrial pollution in the atmospheres of other planets, because that would be a clear evidence that there is something unnatural out there, something artificial. So my point is, what do we lose by conducting a search on one of the most fundamental questions that will have the biggest impact on society? And that the public supports? How is it possible that we are at this situation where the scientific community resists that and ridicules any discussion on that?
Let's take a break right here. We need to get that in. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Professor Avi Loeb. We're talking about his new book, Extraterrestrial. More with Avi after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Fadernauts, when you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Professor Avi Loeb. We're talking about his book, Extraterrestrial. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. We've got everything up in Twitter. Great conversation tonight. And right before the break, Avi, we were talking about the public acceptance, and there's a little bit going on now, too, with mass media and the way that these subjects are being reported. It's never been this free form with mass media before. There's always been a lot of ridicule, tinfoil hats, and the conspiracy circles and everything else that comes with these subjects. Today, it's not funny ha-ha anymore. And the response that you have gotten and the support from not only our community, but the rest of the world says that we need this information. And the mass media is giving it to them, whether it's with fast radio bursts, so exoplanets and searches, and of course, what's going on right now with Mars and the search for life. This is one of the things that the public wants answers to, isn't it?
Definitely. Just yesterday, there was a YouTube video that was posted by Vice News, 14 minutes long, based on an interview with me that took place a few weeks ago. And it within a day, it got 250,000 views. You know, that's amazing. That's like more than a popular song that, you know, by a popular artist gets in one day. It just shows you how interested the public is. And it was 14 minutes long. Now, my book also became a bestseller in many countries. And, you know, I got... of other 24 messages from filmmakers and producers that showed interest in the book. And it's going out to 26 editions in 23 languages worldwide. And I get emails every day. I got an email a few days ago from Malawi in Africa, from a woman that said, your book is great, and you know, I might want to become an astronomer. And I said to her, you know, when I thought about writing the book, I told my publisher that my main motivation is to convince someone somewhere in the world to become a scientist. And if one person does it as a result of reading my book, I would be satisfied. So I asked her, are you the one? Are you the one that will become a scientist after reading my book? And she said, maybe. And then I got an email from an undergraduate student in Columbia saying, your book changed my life. And then I got an email from a lawyer in Palo Alto saying, keep doing what you're doing. It's amazing. You know, and I get these emails every day, and that keeps me going, so to speak, because, you know, that was one of the important messages I wanted to convey, that science can be exciting and can be relevant to the public.
Now, if you get that same email from Brian Greene, you know, let me know, right? Where?
No, I will not get it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, with I like to call them, you know, the rock star physicists out there. And they've got a tremendous amount of influence, and people hang on their every word. We need to get them on board. How do we do that? How do we change that side of academia?
Well, rather than engage in lengthy discussions that will not end anywhere away from their prejudice, the simplest way to do that is getting more evidence. If we have a photograph of an object like Oumuamua and it doesn't look like a rock, they cannot say anything about it, right? So I think what we need is to collect more evidence. Now, of course, their approach would argue it's always a rock. We don't need to get the evidence, which is their prejudice. But somehow, if enough people try to collect the evidence, just like in the case of hot Jupiters, that eventually someone observed a system that has a Jupiter close into a star, irrespective of what people in the mainstream community were saying that such a system should not exist.
Right.
And where are all these people that argue that it shouldn't exist? They disappeared suddenly. Suddenly nobody, everyone was silent. Nobody said, oh, I was wrong. Nobody would say that. I can give you another example. In 2013, I gave a lecture at the winter school about and the lecture was about gravitational waves. Then another lecturer that was 20 years younger than I am, so it has nothing to do with age, he stood up and said, how dare you waste the time of these students on a subject that will never be important for them during their career? And, just a couple of years later, the LIGO experiment discovered the first gravitational wave signal. And that opened up a whole new frontier of gravitational wave astrophysics, the one that I was talking about. And the same students that were in the audience were still doing their PhD. So that person who made that comment to me, he sort of disappeared. He never, he never said, oh, I was wrong. He sort of said, you never hear from him. So the point is, once you have conclusive evidence, suddenly all these people, the naysayers, will disappear. They will never admit that they were wrong. They will never say, oh, it's too bad, we should not have suppressed this particular brand of innovation. You will never find any trace for the fact that they resisted it and tried to bully it and they would suddenly say, oh yeah, of course, why not?
Well, that's one of the most valuable points about science that frustrates me, because we can go back to, it's lead by example. Albert Einstein, static universe. That is what he believed. He hangs out with Edwin Hubble, looks through the telescope. Edwin says, hey, there's some motion, right? There's some things going on here. I think you need to check it out. And Einstein went back and said, hey, I was wrong. The universe isn't static. The solar system is moving. There is movement going on up there. I need to go back and take a look. And he changed his equations, and we accepted that. Isn't that a lesson that anybody should go and take a look at today?
Yeah, so, physics is a learning experience. We can be wrong. Making mistakes is part of the process. And as long as you accept it and don't take it personally, it's not about showing that we are smart. It's about learning what nature is really about. And right now, what happens in academia, unfortunately, is that people are motivated. They're getting rewarded for showing that they are smart rather than for finding the truth. And as a result, they escape into corners where they never get tested. They have a sandbox in which they do intellectual gymnastics and fancy mathematics and demonstrate that they are smart. But it doesn't serve any good purpose, because they get honors, awards, they belong to honor societies, but they don't necessarily describe nature by saying that string theory is right, or by saying that extra dimensions are potentially out there. If there is no evidence, they may not be out there. And who cares that a bunch of physicists decides and agrees to pursue that as a sandbox to demonstrate that they are smart? It's not really relevant. What matters is you have to put skin in the game. You have to make predictions that are testable, that could be proven wrong. But if they're proven right, it demonstrates that you are right. And that's the way physics progressed along the years. And unfortunately, now this culture is quite dominant. The culture of not testing your ideas, of just showing that you are smart, of hanging around with like-minded people, groupthink. and ridiculing innovation, ridiculing thinking outside the box, and it's really unfortunate because academia should be the place where innovation blossoms. Instead, what you find is the private sector that is profit-based, it's for profit, recognizes the value of innovation, recognizes the value of taking risks and sometimes failing, because every now and then you discover something new that carries a huge revenue that more than compensates for the mistakes. And if the private sector, Apple, SpaceX, Google, and so forth, have these groups of people that, take risks, I think, it's a red light for academia not to be better than that. And we are not better than that. Academia is not innovating more than the private sector right now. And it's quite unfortunate. It should be the other way around.
You said the key word there. Keywords, thinking outside the box. That's what moves things forward. Asking questions, pondering, right? Wondering and trying to figure things out, not staying inside the box in a safe zone.
Right. And let me give you an example that I mentioned in my book. I used to visit this town in Germany, the university town, where they would put me in a hotel that always, had very limited space in the room. The ceiling was slanted and I couldn't really stand up in the shower. And I really didn't like that. And at some point I decided to take a double room so that I have more space. And when I got to the receptionist, she asked me, "Where is your wife?" And I said, "She's not with me." And then she said, "Okay, I'll give you a single room." And I said, "No, I'm actually interested in having more space." And she said, "Oh, I understand." She thought that I'm having an affair or something, that I need the extra. I said, "No, I'm coming from the US and I'm used to having more space." And then at that point, I decided to ask my hosts as to why is there so little space in the hotel rooms? And they told me, well, we have a rule in this town that no building should be taller than the church. And so I thought about it for a second, and then I said, okay, why don't you make the church taller? And they said, we haven't thought about that. And so that is thinking outside the box. It came to me immediately, and for centuries, they never contemplated making the church taller so that they would have more room.
Seems simple to me, right?
Yeah, I mean, these ideas come to me without much effort, and I'm really surprised sometimes as to why they're not recognized by others.
Now, I wanted to talk about the Fermi Paradox for a second, and not to go off into the Fermi Paradox, but where we stand today. When Enrico first had this thought, there were no exoplanets. We thought the solar system, we were it. And trying to expand on that and what stars and all the hypotheticals that had to be plugged into the Fermi Paradox made that number what it was back then. Today, what we understand with modern astronomy, stars, the ages of things, and certainly now the amount of planets in the Milky Way, that changes the game completely, doesn't it?
Yeah, but also we know that we are developing the means for our own destruction. We have technologies that were developed over the past century, and they already, have an effect on the planet, climate. And it's possible that the technological civilizations, have a short lifetime. And so the chance of us having a conversation with another civilization that is as advanced as ours is small because they are short-lived. The Fermi Paradox, where is everybody, is a bit presumptuous. When I met my wife, she had friends that used to wait for Prince Charming on a white horse to come and make a marriage proposal to them. And that never happened. So I think it's presumptuous of us to assume that we deserve a visit. Why should anyone care about us? probably things like us existed for billions of years before us, and even things that are much more advanced than we are. We have become a technological civilization only over the past century, which is really a very short time relative to the age of the Earth. And why should we assume that anyone would pay attention to us? We're probably as common as ants are on a sidewalk. And when you walk down the street, you don't pay attention to every ant. So that would be my first inclination. And then the other thing to recognize is most stars are very different than the sun. Most of them are dwarf stars, like the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, and they emit infrared light. And just imagine those creatures that live next to them, they have infrared eyes. And no interstellar tourist agency would advertise the Earth as a desired destination, because all we can offer in our vacation sites are green grass illuminated by visible light. And the visible light hurts their eyes. They're used to dark red grass. So they would never come to visit us. We have to go out, find them, and entice them to come and visit us by offering them a water-based drink. And the other thing to keep in mind, if there are very advanced civilizations, they would perhaps close themselves off in a cocoon, because any contact with a lesser civilization would degrade their quality of life. And so you might think, we will never find out about them. But that's not true, because they still throw out trash. And, just like investigative journalists that go through the trash cans of celebrities in Hollywood, we can look through their trash and figure out the way they live. And that's another reason to look for debris in space.
Now, what if we take that idea, and I appreciate your view, I do, but millions of people on this planet have seen, witnessed things that they cannot explain in the sky going back for millennia. This isn't a modern thing. I have seen stuff I'm not going to go into right now with you, Avi, that truly unexplainable. Lucky. I was lucky, right place at the right time, but I can tell you it didn't have wings or jet engines on it.
Right.
How do we do? Millions of people can't be crazy. There's something else to explain this away.
Yeah, so I have a simple approach to that. And, rather than rely on, declassifying documents from the Pentagon or reports from the past that were based on instruments that were not really at the same quality of the cameras and the audio sensors that we have right now, the best way forward is to deploy state-of-the-art instruments at the locations where reports came from, and either from military personnel or private public, the general public, and record everything that is happening there. We now have the technology that allows us to get much better data, and then just analyze it like a scientific experiment. The essence of science is reproducibility, the ability to reproduce phenomena that someone claims to have seen, and we can see it again. And unless you see it again, you can't really verify that what the root of what the origin of the phenomena is. And the way I think of it is just like the biblical story about Abraham that heard the voice of God telling him to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. If Abraham had a cell phone with a voice memo up, he could have pressed the button and recorded the voice of God. And then we wouldn't really need to, either believe him or not, believe the story of the eyewitness testimony that he provided, or we could have listened to the recording. And that's why scientific instrumentation is so crucial, because it's not subjective. We can analyze it just like any scientific experiment. So I'm very much in favor of placing instrumentation and searching, for any unusual phenomena in those locations where reports came from for unidentified flying objects.
Now, what do you make of the sudden conversation that is going on with the Pentagon, with the Navy, the Senate Intelligence Committee, the UAP task force that is looking into this unidentified aerial phenomena that This is something that is public. It's never really been this way before. Why is the Pentagon discussing ETs in the public?
Well, so the reason the government, the Pentagon, the military is interested in this question of what these reports are about is, of course, national security, because it's also possible that other nations have technologies that we do not possess and are spying on us, and we want to know that. Okay, so that's why the government would be interested in those reports. And it's not because the government is interested in extraterrestrial intelligence. From the perspective of the government, these unusual phenomena are, need to be investigated just to figure out that they do not imply some technologies that other nations possess. And from the point of view of science and the public, of course, we want to know whether they reflect something else. If they are human-made, they would not be that interesting. If they are natural phenomena by nature, also, they would not be that interesting. So I think the best path forward is, rather than insist on the Pentagon releasing the data, releasing the information, is for us to just do an open scientific study of whether there are any unusual things happening. And, that will give us all the information will be open to the public and will be based on the best scientific instrumentation that we have, best cameras, best audio sensors.
Now, what is scarier to you? What is more concerning? The pilots describing something going from 80,000 feet to sea level in a couple of seconds, flying, the videos that's out there and the radar stuff that their testimony has stated, or it being extraterrestrial, right? Is it us? Is it weapons or something that China or Russia would have? Is that alarming? Or it being ET is alarming? What's more?
Of course, ET would be more alarming because it would imply there is something that we fundamentally do not understand, and they're trying to collect information on us. And, the realm of possibilities of who is behind such a surveillance or spying operation from an extraterrestrial civilization and what are their objectives, would be much more alarming, because we are familiar with the intentions of Russia and China, and they sound pretty mundane. They just have their military objectives. They want to get as much information about us and so forth. But with respect to another civilization, we don't really know. There is a lot of unknown, and the more unknown you have, the more frightened you get, because you don't fully understand where it's coming from.
Now, with us, and I think about what these things may be that are visiting us, I think about what we do. What do? We've got probes going to different planets. We're trying to land on different planets. We're trying to videotape and monitor and figure things out. That's what we're doing. We're wondering. We're trying to find exoplanets. Wouldn't ET be doing the exact same thing?
Well, they would do the same thing, but maybe they did it already billions of years ago, and perhaps, if they're still around, they know much more than we do, and they already answered this question. And so they may have different objectives than we have. Their body of knowledge is so much greater, and they develop technologies that are so much more advanced than we have, that perhaps they're operating and we don't even notice them. So, the realm of possibilities is really huge. When we meet a person, it's a safe assumption to assume that, that person would share the same qualities as we do, because we share the same genetic heritage, And when we meet life from another planet that had no contact with Earth, it could be shocking, because it may have developed in a completely different way, and maybe it's also much more advanced than we are. And I think it would be shocking to us once we meet life from another planet.
Well, they're going to step down off of their starship, and they're going to walk down the steps, and they're going to go, "Where's Avi?" Right? We've been listening. Take us to Avi.
Well, my wife jokes about it and says that if they ever land in our backyard, I should do two things. One is make sure that I leave the car keys with her and not take them with me if they call me into the ship. And the second is that I should ask them not to ruin the loan when they lift off.
That is as honest as it gets right there. Let's take go ahead.
You might ask, why isn't she worried about me leaving?
No, my wife would say, when are you going? Right? Let's take our break right here. When we come back, Avi, I want to discuss Breakthrough Starshot. I want to talk about, of course, Proxima B, Centauri B, and what is going on with the entire project and where we are. So stay right there. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal God on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRARadio.com.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard, available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, much anticipated, great conversation. Professor Avi Loeb is with us. We're discussing his new book, Extraterrestrial. But I want to move on. He has been involved with Yuri Milner and, of course, Stephen Hawking when he was with us, and the Breakthrough Starshot project. Lots of help behind this project. Where are we today? Well, actually, what's the basic outline, Avi, of the project?
In May 2015, a black limousine parked in front of the Center for Astrophysics at Harvard, and out of it came an entrepreneur from Silicon Valley named Yuri Milner. He entered my office and sat on the sofa in front of me and asked me whether I'm willing to lead a project to visit the nearest star, the Alpha Centauri system, within his lifetime, which is this, he has the same age as I am, as I have 59, and that meant getting there within 20 years or so. And since the nearest star system is 4.25 light years away, that meant that in order to get there in 20 years, you need to send a spacecraft at a fifth of the speed of light. That's not easy. I told him I need 6 months to contemplate what technology can allow us to do that. And after 6 months, I reported back and said the only possibility is a light sail technology, where you have a lightweight sail that weighs roughly a gram, roughly the size of a person, being pushed by a very powerful laser beam that is 100 gigawatt in power, pushing it for a few minutes across a distance that is comparable to 5 times the distance to the moon. And then that light sail will carry electronics with it and will reach a fifth of the speed of light. And among the equipment that it will carry will be a camera, so that when it gets close to the nearest star system, it could take photographs of planets around those stars and send them back to Earth, so we can tell what's going on out there.
Now, how many, I've got so many questions. How many of these microsatellites would be launched? It wouldn't be one. Would it be 1,000?
Well, every day you can launch another one. So most of the cost is actually in the infrastructure, in the laser beam array. And the spacecraft itself is relatively cheap. It should be the cost of a cell phone, and because it's lightweight and it has roughly the electronics that you find in a cell phone. And the idea is that every time the laser beam is pointed in the right direction, you can launch a new spacecraft. So it's very different than the current method and approach taken in launching missions. You can launch a lot of such spacecrafts, in different directions to different destinations. So, for example, if we had the technology available today, when Oumuamua was passing by, we could have easily reached it with a camera and taken a photograph of it, because we would have a spacecraft that can move much faster than Oumuamua moved. Oumuamua was moving at about 1% of the speed of light, 1 part in 10,000 of the speed of light. And if you move at 20% the speed of light, you're moving 1,000 times faster than Oumuamua was moving. So you can easily catch up with it.
Now, I picture almost like a cloud of these, flying towards Proxima Centauri. It wouldn't, because one is very small, right? I don't even know how you would focus a laser at it. But would it be a cloud of these? You know what I mean?
No, you can,
a cloud of gnats?
You can focus a laser on a sail roughly the size of a person. But you can send many of those spacecraft one after the other, and then in principle get a group of them, a fleet going in this direction. And that helps in the sense that if something bad happens to one of them, it's not a catastrophe, because you have the others. And also, if one of them doesn't go in the right direction, the others may go in the right direction.
Now, how quickly would it be one laser? Is it an array of lasers? Is it multiple lasers? Number one. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It's a lot of low power lasers that combine their beams to a very powerful single beam.
How quick is the speed built up? Is it a burst? Does this last for minutes or days? How long is the laser focused?
The laser is focused for a few minutes.
That's
because, it. Yeah, because after that time, the light sail is so far away that you can't focus the laser anymore on the sail. So the limitation is really how far we can focus the laser on the sail. And that dictates, if you want to reach a fifth of the speed of light, that dictates how much time you have available. And it's only a few minutes if you move the sail to a fifth of the speed of light. And then that by itself dictates how much power you want to put on the laser, because you want within a few minutes to bring it to a fifth of the speed of light, given the weight of the sail. So that's how the calculation goes, that you're first limited by how far you can focus the laser. Then, given the amount of the speed that you want to reach, that tells you how much time you have available. And then to accelerate a light sail to a fifth of the speed of light, you need a powerful enough laser so that it reaches that speed within a few minutes.
It's really strange for me that the technology is extreme. The process is actually very simple.
Oh, yeah. That's that's the beauty of innovation, that you don't necessarily need to engage in something very complex. In this case, the only reason you can reach the speed of light or a fraction of it is because you're using light to push the object. And in this way, the spacecraft doesn't need to carry any fuel with it.
So we're talking about, and again, I don't have a PhD, but I think I understand the process here. In that fifth of the speed of light, Alpha Centauri is 4.5 light years away, 4.25. So that's about 20 years out, right? Approximately 20 years out.
Exactly.
Once we arrive, then the transmissions come back at the speed of light, right? So that's a 4.5 year return, right? Man, sometimes my brain melts, but that's actually what's going on. It's 20 years out, 5 years back.
Exactly, and so it's a long time, and that's why all the science fiction stories that humans embark a spaceship like in Star Trek and then go through the journey. These are not very realistic, because it takes such a long time to go from one star to another that I don't think humans will ever do that. It's easier to send equipment. It's also easier for the equipment to survive the journey. Humans, other than aging, have other issues with being exposed to cosmic rays and other stuff, energetic particles. So it's much better to send equipment, and probably what we will find first in terms of relics are equipment, sent by others, not the actual, we will not have a contact with a creature at first. And, that's what Oumuamua may be about. It's just equipment.
Now, how does the relay come back happen? Not only the digital information of images, but anything else that is captured. Is there a transmitter that is coming back? How does that happen?
Well, that's an excellent question. It's one of the challenges of this project, to communicate the information back from the image taken by the camera, for example. And because of the vast distance of 4 light years, it's not easy to focus the signal on Earth. And therefore, whatever transmits the signal from that distance, would be whatever signal we get on Earth would be very faint. And so that's a challenge we are working on. We will need to build a telescope on Earth so that it can receive the signal from the spacecraft once it reaches the destination. And that's a major challenge. And we are now working on, what kind of radiation would be best to use, what wavelength, and what kind of transmitter to use, and how best to receive the signal. And these are difficult questions.
Now, a couple of years ago, I was very excited, right in the middle of your project and Yuri and the announcements, came the discovery of the exoplanets out in Alpha Centauri, that one of them may be in the Goldilocks zone. It's locked, right? It's tidal locked. Am I correct? You're nodding your head,
yes.
But again,
yes,
I'm not a scientist. But
this planet is called Proxima B. It's in the habitable zone, just at the right distance from Proxima Centauri, which is the nearest star to us. It's at the right distance to potentially have liquid water on its surface, to have a similar temperature to the one we have on Earth. We just don't know if it has life or not. But because it's so close to the star, 20 times closer than the Earth is to the sun, and the reason you need to be that close is because that star is much fainter than the sun. It's 12% of the mass of the sun. It's a dwarf star.
Right.
The kind of star that is much more common than the sun is. Because it's so close to the star, 20 times closer than the Earth is from the sun, it's tidally locked. Meaning that it faces the star with the same side at all times. Similar to the moon, the moon is facing us with the same side because it's tidally locked by the tidal force. And that means that it has a permanent day side on the planet and a permanent night side on the planet. And my daughter says that, if we ever go there, she would like to have two houses, one in the permanent night side where she would sleep, and another one in the permanent sunset strip that separates the day side from the night side, because that's where you would see the sunset forever. So that's where the real estate would be most expensive, in the sunset strip between them.
Now, the news after the announcement of Proxima B came, I guess there was a solar storm. There was a blast that hit Proxima B. And so whatever was there, it was so large, the ejection, that what was ever on Proxima B is now carbon. Right?
Well, okay, so there is this fundamental question of why are we next to a star like the sun? Because after all, stars, just like Proxima B, dwarf stars, are much more common than the sun. And we don't find ourselves next to such a dwarf star, even though these stars are much more abundant. And one possible explanation is these stars are indeed common, but in order to be in the habitable zone around them, you need to be pretty close to them. And then these storms on the stars wipe out the possibility of life, because they can remove the atmosphere of the planet and they can harm life. And, without an atmosphere, you cannot have liquid water. And so it's a possibility. It's a possibility that Proxima B does not have life on it because it's being sterilized by these storms on Proxima Centauri, and the same might hold true for all dwarf stars, and that may explain why we live next to the sun and not to the more common stars. But we don't know as of yet, and hopefully we'll find one day whether there is life or not on Proxima B.
Now, before I ask why Alpha Centauri, because I think there's a few obvious answers, but I want your answers for that. But do you feel that it's close, but there was also reports of fast radio bursts coming from that direction too as well? Do you think there could be the possibility of intelligent life?
Well, there is always a possibility. The question is there evidence? And there was indeed a radio signal from that direction reported from the Parkes telescope in Australia. And it was very narrow in frequency, and the problem I had with the interpretation that it came from Proxima B, for example, is that Proxima B, the planet, is moving around the star, and the frequency as a result should drift. It's called the Doppler effect. When you hear a siren, let's say an ambulance approaching you, the pitch is different than when it's receding from you. Because of the motion. And as a result, since we know that Proxima B is moving around Proxima Centauri, we expect the frequency to drift. And the amount of drift I calculated was far greater than observed. And so that convinced me that it cannot come from Proxima B. And, that I based that, I was not part of the discovery team, but I based that on the report in The Guardian that came out. And the actual scientific paper is not publicized yet, so I don't know the full details, but I would assume that it's probably not coming from the surface. If there is a signal, it's not coming from Proxima B, the planet. And the question is it coming from Australia instead, from some interference nearby? And that would be the most likely explanation, because we've been broadcasting radio waves for 100 years, maybe, or a little more than that. What's the chance that the nearest star is exactly synchronized with us? That, it's 100 years out of 4.5 billion years that the Earth existed. So only in the past, one part in, I don't know, 100 million or so, 50 million, we've seen, we have developed the technology to do it ourselves. So what's the chance that the planet next to us has done it exactly at the time that we can observe the signal? I think it's pretty small. The Copernican principle argues that we don't live at a special privileged time. So I would not expect the nearest star to show us a signal. If we ever see a signal, it will come from a distant star, because there are many more stars far away. There is only one star that is the closest to us. So, a priori, based on the Copernican principle, I would think that it's very unlikely. And I would think that someone in Australia produced this signal. The same telescope already discovered a fast radio burst, repeating source a few years ago, and then they realized, it's detected only at lunchtime. How is that possible? And then they realized, there is actually a microwave oven that someone is opening the door of the microwave oven before it finished cooking, and as a result they get this additional signal in their telescope. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that is causing it. And the only way to find out is to detect the same signal. Again, reproducibility is an essential part of science. So detect the same signal from another telescope located at a completely different geographical site.
Now, I originally thought that Milner and Hawking chose Alpha Centauri because they knew something. Right?
No. I was part of the group of people that contemplated this project, and it's simply because it's the nearest star system, so it takes the shortest amount of time to get there. Yes, I can tell you for sure, because I was at the core of this. I actually was involved in the initiation of the project.
So you're taking the wind out of my solar sails, by saying that. But
no, I'm reporting the facts. I don't. Like with Oumuamua, I don't care what other people say and what it does to other people. I'm just telling you the facts.
One day I will tell you about me meeting Stephen Hawking, and it was incredible. I got to hang out with him for a couple of hours.
By the way, as I tell in my book, he came for dinner, for Passover dinner at my home. That few weeks when he was visiting, when we announced the Breakthrough Starshot initiative and also the Black Hole initiative at Harvard University. And, it all started from when I met him in August 2015 in the Royal Society in London. And he was in a hall, and the caretaker approached me and said, would you mind speaking with Stephen? He's bored. There is nobody speaking with him right now. So I came to him and I said, look, Stephen, we are about to establish the only center in the world that focuses on the study of black holes at Harvard University next year, and we would love to have you for the inauguration, because that is a subject that you worked on for so long. And, I didn't really wait for him to respond, because it always took him a long time to type in what he wants to say.
Right.
But then, about 6 months later, a colleague of mine came to my office and said, something really incredible happened, because I just visited Stephen Hawking, and he spent a whole day writing a letter to his physician, asking the physician for permission to visit Harvard University and attend the inauguration of the Black Hole Initiative. And the amazing thing is the physician approved it. So he never made a trip for a few years, and previous trip was to the White House. And so the physician approved it. The only problem was that it will cost $500,000 to arrange this visit. And that's he said. My colleague said, "Well, that's your problem, because you are the founding director of the Black Hole Initiative. You need to find that money.
You need to cut a check, right?"
Well, not a check. So I found a creative solution, and within a week we had that funding, and then he came over, and gladly, he also came to my house for Passover dinner. It was April 2016, and it was a very fun visit, and I talk about it in my book.
His same thing happened with me, sort of. His caretaker, his nurse, came up to me and said, "Can you hang out for just a second? I've got something to do." And I was like, Stephen Hawking, right? So I go up, and it's just the two of us, and he types out on his screen. He says, "Are you a cop?" And I said, "No, I am not, but it is a pleasure to meet you." What a great conversation tonight, and I want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show. I wanted one last question about Stephen Hawking, where he has warned us, right? Let's not reach out. We don't know. We may not like what comes and visits us. They may not have our best intentions in mind. Did that change after you came on board? Did he change that view at all about the possibility of making contact?
He didn't change the view, and I pretty much agree with him, because when you enter a room full of strangers, you better stay quiet and listen rather than speak, because you never know whether there are predators that may endanger your existence. And the dinosaurs were very happy eating grass and being very proud of their huge bodies. They dominated their environment, but their ego trip was tarnished abruptly when a giant rock, roughly the size of Manhattan Island, hit the ground 66 million years ago and killed them and killed 3/4 of the life forms on Earth. And, that is a very important lesson for us, that we need to know about our environment. We better get that information, because who knows whether there are risks out there.
I've done some rough numbers, and we'll close with this. We've got about 500 star systems that are 50 light years from Earth, approximately. Right? Okay. We have been sending radio and television signals of strength for about 100 years, rougher, give or take, right? Do you anticipate the return calls coming back now, where we have achieved, the 100 years out? We need the 50, the 50-year round trip. Would it surprise you if we started receiving something from somewhere?
Well, that would be good news if we receive a signal. What I'm worried about is that they will come to wipe us out, and if they use chemical rockets like we used in the context of Voyager 1, Voyager 2, New Horizons, then it would take them about 1 million years to cross 100 light years. Okay, the distance that our signals went through by now. So, we might still have a long time, but eventually, within 1 million years, they'll get here. Now, if they use a propulsion that is much faster than rockets, they might get earlier. And we just need to monitor the sky for anything unusual coming our way. We need just like you have radar systems warning us from, ballistic missiles. We need other things that warn us, telescopes that warn us of something coming our way. And we should just be on alert. Who knows? It would have been much better if we didn't broadcast, and that was not a wise move on our side.
The Space Force is now with us, and what I've got 30 seconds. What about faster than light travel or folding space or wormholes and these other crazy concepts and defeating the chemical side of space travel and mechanical ways of doing it?
Well, it's worth investigating those possibilities, but as of now, we don't know how to produce faster than light travel. We just didn't find a practical way, but not also a conceptual way of generating a space-time that allows us to do that. And as of now, I would say it's not possible.
For E.T., if he's 1 billion years ahead of us?
Oh, everything is possible for ET because we just don't know what will happen 1 billion years for us from now. So actually meeting an ET that is much more advanced than we are is a way of meeting our future. And that's one additional incentive for looking at the sky.
Avi Loeb, thank you so much, my friend. What a great conversation. I look forward to the next one. Much success to the book. It's been great. And be safe out there.
Thanks for having me.
You're the best. Avi Loeb. I'm going to take a quick break. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back with your phone calls. Stay with us.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
Hello, my name is Billy Carson, and I am a best-selling author and the founder of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Together with my team, we have built an all-new conscious streaming TV platform designed with every family member in mind. If you have ever wanted to travel the world and attend lectures and workshops from your favorite speakers but weren't able to, look no further. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. There are dozens of workshops and lectures from speakers you know and love. We have also included amazing categories to assure that your consciousness is entertained and elevating on a daily basis. Amazing interviews, ancient history, ascension knowledge, wisdom teachings, documentaries, conspiracies, mysteries, health and fitness, conscious cooking, meditations, finance, yoga, and so much more. To start your free trial on any mobile device or computer, surf to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.tv. Again, visit forbiddenknowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JamieChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. That was an amazing conversation recorded earlier tonight with Avi Loeb. We did the interview at about 4 p.m. Right before the show. So it was as live as we could make it. And so there you go. 747-228-2051. I've opened up the phone lines, and now I'm live. Now I'm live. And I want to say a big shout out to the YouTube chat room where I hung out all night. And 747-228-2051. YouTube is amazing. And I am... I'm so acclimated to the sandbox, and focusing on the YouTube chat. One of my comments in there earlier. First off, it's fast, man, and so is the sandbox. The sandbox is bigger, and I've got it's colorized. It's black background with white, and I can read that. I can read the YouTube chat too as well, but it is fast, it's rapid, and it's smaller. I don't know anything about YouTube. I don't know if you can change the background colors and things. Maybe you can. I don't know. I'll take the advice later. But focusing on that, I was getting cross-eyed and trying to comment, and I'm missing so much of it, trying to keep up with it. But I'm just going to say this right now, YouTube, that chat room, you guys are absolutely amazing. And I really had a lot of fun. And the comments with everybody over there was, I appreciate it. We should do this more often. Well, yeah, I can't. The only reason why that happened tonight is because we taped for like the second or third time in the history of Fade to Black. And we had to do that for Avi because he gets up at 4 a.m. literally and starts teaching over there at Harvard. And it was the only way that we could make the show happen tonight. Lots of takeaways for me in the show, in his conversation. One, well, I've got a lot. I'll get to that. I've opened up the phone line, 747-228-2051. And what is really strange is I don't see the phone lines lighting up. I would have assumed, I'm speaking to everybody out there, I would have assumed that the phone lines would have lit up, and they haven't. So what's going on with that? 747-228-2051. And okay, there's one call coming in. Let's light it up. 747-228-2051. I want to see. Okay, let's go. Is that what I got to do? Is that what I got to do with all of you out there? 747-228-2051. I'm waiting. 747. I'm cross-eyed, man. that YouTube chat. Woo, man. And this is another thing for me. Listening to myself, I don't dig it. All right. And it's nails in a chalkboard. But going back and listening to the flow of that conversation with Avi, I over the last, few years, certainly, but over the last couple of months, I've tried to catch as many of his interviews as I can. I don't know if he mentioned this during the show. I know he did before the show tonight. He did 350 interviews this month. 350. Now, most of them are a couple of minutes and 5 minutes here and there. Some of them are full shows. And I know what people ask him. I do. And I've heard the same questions over and over again. He's a professional, and he addresses everybody. But I didn't want to do that tonight. I didn't want to ask one question that he has been hit with over and over again. And I think it was refreshing for him. He was able to just let it go. And that was my takeaway with this conversation tonight, listening to it. And I think I hung with Avi. And remember, and I said this in the YouTube chat, so I'm going to repeat myself, that I'm not a PhD. I'm not a physicist. I study it. I try to absorb it the best that I can. And I think he appreciates that I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. I'm researched in it. And I was able to see his facial expressions during the interview. We had live video running back and forth, and he was appreciative. He was smiling, and I think that he really enjoyed the conversation, and it was pretty solid. So for me, I think I got what I wanted out of the interview. We left a lot on the table. I know that we're going to have him back after he gets through with these interviews with the publicity for the book and everything else. There's a lot of media reaching out to him right now, and for him to give us 2 hours of his time when he is doing back-to-back interviews all day long, I really appreciate it, and I hope that all of you enjoyed that conversation tonight. All right, so with that, let's go random. Let's see who's on hold. Let's see who's up first. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? Oh, wait. Oh, man, I am asleep at the wheel. All right, now let's see if we can do it again. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. This is Eric the artist.
Hey, Eric. How are you, man?
Oh, great. I thoroughly enjoyed the show. I was actually eagerly awaiting this episode when you posted it publicly last week. I was like, oh, cool. Avi Loeb. I'm a huge fan.
Well, and I know that you are. And Eric, it goes without saying that you stay on top of the UFO community and what has been going on. And you've been doing this for a couple of decades. So, but Avi is somebody that everybody is talking about right now. And I'm sure that you've listened to other interviews. What did you think about the conversation? Yeah. What did you think about the conversation tonight?
A couple things. The huge one, and Avi's not the only one that conversationally neglects it, but I find it to be a huge detriment in relation to human beings and our gross limitations of space exploration. Surely, yes, we can be exploring the solar system, and we're doing that, baby steps, and we're doing it as effectively as we can without our own stupidity getting in the way. But the thing that is the most daunting, and I made a little blurb in the sandbox about it, is what most human beings don't realize is that the Earth, the solar system itself, is right smack dab in the middle of one of the largest voids in our galaxy that we have ever found. It is huge, whereas there are much more densely packed portions of our galaxy that are full of planets and stars that make travel and the time issue much more workable and an easily achievable thing, relatively, given the technology of whatever the exploring civilization is. However, with us, everything that we're doing is going to require, we shouldn't be looking at necessarily speed. We should be looking at things like investing in what's called a generation ship, where we actually build something very large in space, in low Earth orbit, and send it off. And whoever's on that ship, we'll never see them again. Not only that, they are set up to where they are going to be having children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and on and on and on through the entire journey, and keeping them trained with what the objective of the mission is. They're very much a Battlestar Galactica scenario.
Right.
You're going to be in space a very long time. Generations will only know space. That's it. They won't know of Earth except through stories and history book pictures that they're taught in the classroom on board the craft. And this is why, my point number 2, what I think we're experiencing as phenomena on this planet is not necessarily extraterrestrial. I think that would be a very rare thing. Even if ET could achieve light speed, which is, according to special relativity, impossible, it would require just that, a generation ship, which means it would be large, very large. You could not hide that. We would see it. There would be some sort of signature, something to look at in the light spectrum and the radio spectrum. We would, with our current technology, we would quote unquote see it, and we're not seeing that.
Now, let me address. You bring up 2 of the best points that I think that constantly need to be addressed. And so let's talk about generational ships first.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm going to make all of these responses brief because this is a long conversation. I don't know where, if we built some ginormous ship, put 10,000 people on it, 100,000 people on it, where we would send it. It would have to go to a star system where we know that there is a Goldilocks planet waiting for them. You can't just send them out forever into right. So I don't know where we would send it first. But
I would roll my dice on Vega.
Well, okay, but let's say that first, right? I don't know where we would send it, but the generational idea there, where it would be flying for 1 million years, right? It could go not for 10,000 years, not for 1,000 years. It would have to go for forever. If it is
it would
traveling
fly longer than there's been humanity in civilization form on this planet.
By the time it gets to where it's going, Earth won't be here. Okay, no. Right? We will have burnt up. But there's another part to this, and Avi addressed it, and it fascinated me, which is this. A couple of minutes of laser time on the microsatellite's solar sail achieves 1/5 of the speed of light. A couple of minutes, Eric, a couple of minutes, and you are traveling faster than anything that has ever been before. And we have that technology right now.
we also have nuclear technology right now. And if we had non-weaponized nuclear fuel on board our spacecraft and removed that stupid treaty out of our space program that we signed during Cold War, which is nonsense.
Right.
We could then start creating craft that could potentially create a constant 1G thrust.
Now,
which means you don't have to turn off the damn engine.
Right.
If we did that, we're talking about we could get to places like Proxima B. In like 5 years.
Now, and there's now when we talk about the mechanical sense of engines, right? Especially a nuclear version that you're talking about, mechanical, chemicals, whatever. The faster you go, you're slowing down time, and you're also creating mass. Right, and if you get to light speed, it's infinite mass, and time is now frozen, and so you would want to get to like 99% of the speed of light. You don't want to hit 100. I'm not so sure if that's the way to go. The other way to go, and that's a mechanical sense. What Avi is talking about here, with lasers and light sails. You are no longer taking that with you on the ship. And once the ship is up to that speed, you don't need any more propellant. You don't need to worry about anything, but you have to stop wherever you are flying to, right? You have to hit you don't slow down, and you have no resistance.
However long it took you to accelerate is exactly how long you need to decelerate. And so somewhere halfway through the trip, you gotta start slowing down. However you do that, retro rockets, whatever, some sort of burst.
Right.
There's a third factor that.
Hold on. There's the other part that I wanted to address with this directly is if I understand. When you said we're not seeing that from ET. We're not seeing generational ships out there. We're not seeing any signatures. If ET is 10,000 years in front of us, that's it. Just 10,000 years of advancement. ET has figured out a way to circumvent all of that. It's not about traveling at the speed of light. It's not about a mechanical movement. It's not about chemistry or chemicals pushing these crafts forward. It's not about any of that. They are moving from point A to point B instantly. They're not dealing with the speed of light. They're not dealing with E equals MC squared. They're not dealing with infinite mass. They're not dealing with frozen time. They're not dealing with any of that. They are somehow getting from point A to point B, and we are not seeing those ships move. We're not seeing a signature out there because it's not there to begin with. That's how you travel the stars. It won't be, I don't think it's going to be with a generational ship. Our view of technology right now is, we got to build a generational ship. I understand that. We don't have any other concept to base things on. But
I think we'll actually do it because we're going to be, the big push now, especially with people like Bezos, who I don't think will actually ever achieve orbit. He drives me nuts. But his idea, and others will take it on, is he wants to remove resource harvesting from the planet altogether and begin taking it from the moon, asteroids, things like that.
Sure.
And if we start taking those materials en masse like that from those places of resource, we can begin constructing the large-scale craft. We can't do that right now without some serious depletion of our own planet's resources and threaten the environment and other shit other stuff that needs to stay alive on this planet. Just to begin constructing large scale like is needed to do something like that requires, I think, beyond our planet's capability to generate the material that is needed.
Well, yeah,
so,
and putting
there's
those
going to be the big,
but putting that material on rockets, mining it from the earth, right? And going through the industrial processes that are needed.
It'll all be done in space.
It would have to be done in space. You've got to grab an asteroid, tow it into orbit, and do it that way. That's the only way it would ever possibly get done. I also firmly believe, I'm telling you, this is fact. This is absolute fact. We can't stay on this planet forever.
No way.
It's not.
No, we're going to get.
We got to go. We got to go. We got to go. 1 trillion years from now, our solar system is a distant memory. Okay.
Just from ice evidence, we're on restart number 3.
Yeah, we're
pressing our luck.
Yeah, we're pressing our luck. We only have at the farthest extreme of the numbers is 5 billion years left with our sun. But during that 5 billion years, the sun is going to expand, it's going to overheat, it's going to do a lot of different things in that 5 billion years.
The Goldilocks zone is going to be in Europa, before we do anything about it unless we smarten up.
That's right. So we've got about 1 billion years of what we are right now. We've got about 1 billion years, and that's not much. We have to make plans right now about leaving. Everybody's got to go. There can't be anybody left. We've got to go somewhere.
Here's the third factor, and it's very important. You think of how much debris we've been pummeled by, just our solar system alone. I mean, the crater evidence on moons and other planets just in our solar system alone is overwhelming. It's been hit with debris for billions of years, and that's us in the middle of a void. Now you get in the middle of a densely populated region of our galaxy, and there's going to be exponentially billions squared times billions squared amount of debris. And so I think our level of technology and our level of understanding of the universe is probably going to be the most common one as a result of that. And that the advanced civilizations that everybody's looking for are going to be far more rare than what we think they are, simply because of that planetary restart. They've been pummeled and pummeled and pummeled, and in some cases obliterated. We've got an asteroid belt showing evidence of that. It's in the process of forming planets right now. We got Ceres, and it's taken billions of years to reform that.
Well, and there's always, you're right about that. And there's always, right now, as you and I have talked, I'm looking at the clock. Okay, so we've talked for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
15 solar systems have been created. In that last 15, it's like every minute, you just think about it, every minute that goes by, another solar system is created. The universe is not done, and it's not over in its creation. What we need to do, there's always going to be something new and fresh out there, but what we need to do is find a star system with a star that is balanced, correct, with a Goldilocks planet in front of it, with a star that where the temperatures are correct, and a star that is going to be there for 1 trillion years, not 10 billion years. And there are literally tens of trillions of billions of stars out there like that. We just have to find the right one.
We need to stop looking at the red dwarf planets, because those are all going to be eyeball planets. So Proxima Centauri is a red dwarf planet, which means if there is any life on any of its planets in orbit around it, they're all, firstly, they are
radiated. Yeah, and they're also radiated.
And everything there is going to see probably infrared, like Avi was talking about.
That's right.
There's no white light. We need to stop looking at that stuff, because we're going to have a very difficult. You don't send out a civilization that has been, taken millions of years of adaptation and evolution to get to where it is, to suddenly go to full restart. And it would be a full restart on a habitat like that. It'd be a full-on eyeball planet if there's any possibility of life on any of those planets in Alpha Centauri at all. And which means you're going to be in constant radiated heat with living closer toward the poles. And then the backside of that planet is nothing but freaking ice. You're not.
You know what? You're not just. You know what? You know what's funny? You're not just an artist, and your artwork is based on knowledge and thought, and just incredible, Eric. Thank you so much, man. And let's speak soon, my friend.
Yeah,
Eric Stitt. You know what? You know what's funny? You just laid out the knowledge for 15 minutes. You get to the end and you're out of words. I love it, Eric. Don't change, man.
All right. See you, Jimmy. Go back to Tappy, fam.
Man, and have a great night. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Eric Stitt. Now, how is that? Now, everybody that's on hold, I apologize. But Eric calls into this show like, I don't know, once a year. And there you go. But absolutely, we've got to get off this planet. Probably, and folding space and doing all of that is in the future, and we'll get to that. But there is no doubt that eventually us humans, we may not live on planets at all. We may not. We just may cruise the universe on ships that we build as we go, build on, make bigger, visit asteroids, visit planets, get resources, and then keep moving forward. And 1 trillion years from now, that's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to live. That's how we are going to exist. Now, with all of that, what an amazing night tonight. What an amazing show. I want to thank Avi Loeb for coming in and spending all of that time with us. 2 hours of Avi Loeb tonight. Tomorrow night is Fader night. Don't forget, open lines all night long. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camurian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldridge. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2021 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll see everybody tomorrow night for Fader night. Thank you, Avi Loeb. Until then, be safe. It's time to Fade to Black.